Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. This February DAP, we have one item, but before we get started, I just wanted to introduce our new panel member, David, Bethesda community, and I know he's got introducing himself, so we're happy to have him on board. We still have one more panel spot before our panel can finally be complete, so we are still looking for a landscape architect. We have a couple names out there, but we have not done interviews or any decisions yet. So if you know anybody interested.
But that have to be Bethesda resident also, or?
It does not, they do not have to be a Bethesda resident. It would be great if they had ties to Bethesda in some way or an understanding of Bethesda, but yeah. And then my way, please. And so the first item is 7025 Strathmore Street. This project came before the panel last, actually November 2023, so almost a year and a half ago now. And the panel.
September, actually.
Oh, it was September?
I looked at the meeting this morning. It was September.
Oh.
I looked at the video, but anyway. Sorry to interrupt.
I have a typo in my notes. I will.
The lawyer.
Yeah. Without transparent.
Come in hot. So.
I got that.
Well, so at the September 2023 meeting, the DAP reviewed the sketch plan and found that the massing was on its way, the minimum 10 design X, but there was other information that was necessary in terms of the block connection that's proposed at the south. And so we had requested a follow-up sections of that, as well as a section of the Strathmore Street pedestrian area to understand that relationship from the building to the public realm. Applicant did provide those sections in their submission, but the public patios that were fronting on Strathmore Street have been removed. But when we read the submission as staff, we did think that some more information would still be necessary to understand the relationship of the building to the public realm there. And then we also had noticed in the submission that there was no information regarding landscaping or building materials itself. So I'm going to turn it over to the applicant to go through their presentation. And if you could maybe hit on some of those items, that would be great.
Sure. Chris Rulin with Lord Shirley and Brewer, and our firm is representing the applicants here, Strathmore Apartments 1 Limited Partnership, Strathmore Apartments 2 Limited Partnership. Why don't we quickly go down the line and introduce our team? Start with Chong.
Hi, my name is Chong Cho. I'm with Architects Collaborative.
I'm Clyde Tuckberg. I'm with the Architects Collaborative. I'm Andrew Casso from Casso Management, one of the owners. Rob Tilson, landscape architect with VICA.
Chris Caddick with Galloway for the transportation.
And Michael, I think you're online.
Yes, hello,
Yeah.
Michael Miller with Gelman Companies.
Great. So we're pleased to be here today to bring this project back to the DAP. The planning board approved the sketch plan for this just last year, January 25th, 2024. As a refresher, this project is in the South Bethesda district of the sector plan in the CR zone. The zoning is CR 1.5, C.25, R 1.5, H70. And it's also within the Bethesda overlay zone. We're going to go through some slides about the project, but before we do, just a little bit of background. This is a proposal to replace existing multifamily residential apartments in the south part of Bethesda with a larger multifamily residential building. The project has below grade parking and amenities, and it's intended to be developed, owned, and operated by the applicant, which has been a long-term owner and operator in the Bethesda area of this, and also of the Battery Lane site, which came to it's another sketch plan approval from about a year ago that will be hopefully coming forward in the near future back to the DAP when it does its site plan, which we think is going to happen pretty soon. This project proposes up to 180 residential dwelling units in 170,000 square feet of GFA. That's about 2.89 FAR, and that uses an allocation of 81,859 square feet of BOS density, or 1.39 FAR. And that's over the 1.5 that's otherwise permitted by the map zoning. We'll talk about this, but the sector plan, because this is sort of on the edge area of the downtown, has a pretty steep transition in density and height from what's allowed, one property over adjacent to Wisconsin Avenue. But that's what we've designed to. Among other things that we're doing to address the sector plan are the through block connection, but we do have some updated materials to share about that. In terms of timeline, we're doing a site plan and a preliminary plan application. Those are about to be submitted for review, we hope within the next couple of weeks. Once those go in, we'll be in the intake process for a bit, but then on our way to the planning board, depending on the sort of timing of things, it may be that this gets to the planning board for the August recess, but it's going to be very, very close. So if it falls, just a little bit too late, it will be right after they come back. And with that, why don't we get into some of the details?
Great. Again, my name is Faik. Great to be here. I'm sorry it took us so long to get back to this group, but it's the fault of the civil engineer and the landscape architect. I'm just kidding. We're all moving as fast as we can. Unfortunately, the process takes some time. I have a good presentation for you today. The slides kept on building up. I'm going to try to be brief. As questions came up, to respond to those, we added additional renderings or drawings, and I will do my best to move quickly to save time. If you have any questions about anything specific, we can always come back. So why don't we go to the next slide? The drawing is, the top of the drawing is roughly pointing north, Wisconsin Avenue, prominent street, avenue there, and it's pointing north in that direction. So the site is surrounded by Wisconsin Avenue, Woodmont Avenue, a busy and busier nice retail street in part towards the west. And then the Strathmore Avenue is our front street. And it's a peninsula where between Strathmore, Woodmont, and the alley that's behind the building. Next one, please. Just general location. We have great access to metro, etc. I'm sure you're all familiar with where we are. These are some of the surrounding buildings. Wisconsin Avenue, the office building up top. And then these are reasonably new apartment buildings. Some of them are older. The one in the middle is, I don't know, about 20 years or so. And then the newest one is the Camille, which is on the other side of the alley from us. The bottom right corner, that place has been there forever. What used to be the Parisian carpet place, and it's changed many customers. And we'll talk a little bit more on the next slides about that, particularly this one. A really great illustration of the desired height envelope. We have 120 and 145 feet or more along Wisconsin, and we're dropping down towards the west. I'm just going to talk about that side. Similar thing is happening on the east side of Wisconsin. And as we're going south, that height is also slightly dropping from 120 at the intersection of Woodmont and Wisconsin to 90. And we're surrounded by 90-foot buildings, but our site envelope is 70 feet. That's our max height, and that's where the building is. Next one, please. This is a block plan, so you can see really how the building is between Strathmore, Woodmont, and the alley. Next one, please. Some of the primary streets, obviously Wisconsin Avenue is the main circulation pattern. Woodmont becomes important for this, as well as Bradley. and then Strathmore is straddling. That's really our focus. And then the alley that's between Woodmont and Bradley becomes the service corridor. Next one, please. These are some inspirational photographs, things that we may have used imagery in developing our design concept. Next one, please. Okay. Instead of starting with the floor plan, which I usually do, I added the slide in here so we can all see both the massing and the architecture we intend to develop here and the features of the building. The main facades are Woodmont and Strathmore. The alley side, as you can see, what's happened with the Camille, those are much taller buildings. And at some point, as the Parvesian carpet block develops, the backside of our building will become a true backside. It will not be visible. And I'm sure that is inevitable. It's a matter of time. But beyond that, I think we will provide a great sort of stepping envelope to the existing apartment buildings towards the bottom right. And to the left side, we have 120, 140-foot buildings, and we're going up to our max at 70 feet. But beyond that, some of the features of this property as we walked and drove by, we have a really nice opportunity to develop a kind of a slightly iconic imagery for this building at the intersection of Woodmont and Strathmore. There's a lot of traffic going to be coming up from the retail portion of Woodmont headed towards Wisconsin, and that is really the primary focal point of this building. Another aspect of this is all the way to the south corner of the building, if you can point, John, right there, which is our pass-through feature that is in coordination with the Camille. That is a pedestrian path which will lead the neighborhood from south side to Wisconsin Avenue. I'm sorry, from the west side to Wisconsin Avenue. Next one, please. So the main facade is bookended by the round element and another secondary feature where we're switching materials. And I'd like to talk about, Grace mentioned materials. I said this before, but perhaps we didn't write it on the submittals. Our intent, the white material, my first go-to would be metal panels, but it depends on pricing. Barring that, we will not be able to do that. If we cannot do that, we will go with a high-quality synthetic panel, okay, to achieve the similar look. And while we're showing white here, it will be slightly off-white so that we do not show dirt and pollution over time as the building ages. But there are a number of examples around town, white buildings have been successfully built and maintained. The other slightly beige color, that will be a synthetic panel. And at the base of the building, we're using brick and cast stone elements. Our desire is to really, we'll see on some of the later drawings, provide a granite band at the first 2.5 feet or so, where the building meets the ground, especially on Woodmont and Strathmore. I hope that answers some of the questions, and then we will get into the landscaping and the sidewalk details. Next one, please. So these are before and after. Before is on top. Current is at the bottom as we go through these next 4 or 5 slides. There have been some modifications since last time you've seen this building. I will do my best not to mention every one of them. If I forget it, John will remind me, but I'm going to start at the top left corner. One major aspect is that we pulled the building 4 feet back from the alley line or our property line to give more breathing room to the alley, similar to what Camille did in part And I'm only assuming that the Parvisian building will also do the same thing as they develop that project and work with the staff. And moving to the right, we developed the pedestrian pass-through. We detailed it much more. We've had time to look into it closely. We revised the loading dock by tapering it and pulling it back at the same time. We revised the ramp garage entrance in response to some comments. And I believe that all of these are improvements. On Strathmore and Woodmont, the tree canopy was revised, increased, and the landscaping and the sidewalk is further developed. The last time we met with the staff, I guess about a week and a half ago, we had some patios showing along Strathmore, but it really became disruptive. So we removed the patios. There is really no need. We're up a little higher from the grade, and we have 4 bioretention planters. So in between them, we have basically dirt where we can plant a tree, nothing too huge, but regardless, because it's so close to the building, the bioretention planters have a ledge approximately, because of the slope, anywhere from like 8 to 14 inches or so. And beyond that, there's a small fence, decorative fence, and then within that, we have the plant material. And just outside of that, we have the sidewalk, and then we have a little strip trees, the tree wells, and then the curb and parking spaces. So it's a fairly typical sidewalk section. Curb, sidewalk, some kind of a planting material, and the building. And the drop-off was eliminated as we get closer to the bottom left. In lieu of that, we have a striped area so that people can briefly stop, not stay, and either drop off food, delivery, whatever, or drop a person by the entrance.
Where's that located?
You see
On
the
Strathmore?
cross hatched
Oh, I see it, okay.
near our door. And then there's a handicap parallel space added immediately to the right of that. Next one, please. Again, these are just follow-up improvements to the building, responses to comments. I think working with the staff, widening the alley, working on loading service and the pedestrian pathway, I think they really improved, and the sidewalk is developed further. I mentioned everything in the previous slide. Next one, please. Typical floor plan, really nothing huge or exciting to report. Basically, we have same number of units. There may be some variations that generated from the other revisions we made. Next one, please. We have a lot of changes and improvements because we had time to think about it, and the ownership had time to make some decisions. So we developed the rooftop element, both in terms of the plan and further in conjunction with the massing and elevation. Everything you see in the tan color are building amenities. What you see in the gray color are either mechanical spaces, rooftop mechanical units that are parapeted and screened at a penthouse level with a wall. Then we have bathhouses. We added a swimming pool and a sun deck and a terrace area when the swimming pool is not in use. While it is not the largest building here, only 180 units, I think we have a lot of amenities, and we really worked on the mechanical spaces in advance to come as close as possible to the green roof areas. So they are reasonably specific, maybe a little too specific, but we're going to stick with it. We've actually had the mechanical engineer with whom we work very closely. Next one, please. And this is the rooftop. Again, there's more green roof. You're seeing open light gray areas which house the mechanical units, and there's going to be a stair pressurization air handling unit on the and you can clearly see the focal point of this building. This building is structured around that the round element, and in conjunction with the bay windows that give the scale and the discipline to this, give it its presence. Next one, please. Really nothing interesting here. Garage, just a ramp revision. Obviously, we're going to keep working on this to make it as efficient and as buildable as possible as we have a chance to actually design the building. Next one, please. More garage. Next one, please. Cross section, the longitudinal tells the story. That section is cut parallel to the alley and to Strathmore. The sort of the pinkish, lavenderish color is the lobby and amenity spaces. Yellow are residential spaces. Gray are garage service areas. And most of that gray is buried, of course. And on the right, we have the pass-through. On the left is Woodmont Avenue. And the cross section on the other side, on the left, shows same things, amenities on top, residential, which is the primary purpose of this building in yellow. Gray is service areas above surface. Gray is buried garage below. Next one, please. Although you've seen the renderings of this, these are the elevations, as I mentioned. The big round feature on the left side at the top drawing, west elevation, then the repetitive bay windows, highly articulated. We have a two-story base, primarily of masonry. And then the side elevation is also our pedestrian cut through. As I mentioned, this is a secondary elevation, but we see it still as a point where we're presenting a good corner, a visible corner that will, I think, always remain visible to highlight the entrance to the pedestrian pathway. The lower elevation is the alley elevation. In the part where we have the buildings, we introduce more balconies to provide some privacy to the units that are immediately looking at the alley and currently towards Camille. Otherwise, we intend to utilize as much of the space as we have. And again, my guess is that this elevation will primarily disappear in the long term. Most of it is not visible because of Camille to the left. Right of it will disappear. But I mean, that's something that happens in urban areas. But again, we have a corner at the Woodmont and the alley corner that will remain visible. And we've highlighted that with further articulation so that as you come off Wisconsin and you're headed down Woodmont, you have something to look at that leads you to our circular element. And then you have the north elevation, which is on Woodmont. As you can see, the slope is picking up quite a bit from Strathmore. So we have the base primarily of glass. We have lobby and miscellaneous like computer spaces, meeting spaces at the lobby towards the corner of Woodmont and the alley. So we wanted to make that elevation as transparent as possible and activate that portion of the sidewalk as much as a residential building can. Next one, please. Before and after, really, it's detailing the building. We stuck to our concept, what we had previously, the round element and the rhythmic articulated bay windows. We always intended the same materials and we stuck by them. You can see perhaps more glass added along Woodmont as we had a chance to further develop and understand the building. And obviously the sidewalk developed. One word here, just to be full disclosure, is that on the right perspective, you can see it. We had to remove a couple of trees so you can see the building. The trees are sort of shaded in. Next one, please. Before and after, same kind of a thing. We spent a little bit more time on this corner and coordinated with the Woodmont Avenue facade. And the alley is pulled back. I'm sorry, the building is pulled back along the alley at the first 2 stories. Obviously, that brought some change, and we responded to that. Next one, please. So we can start talking further about the sidewalk on Strathmore. As I mentioned to you, you can see the typical cross section here: planting strip, sidewalk, and then the bioretention planters or planted areas moving towards our pedestrian pathway. We had some scaling elements before. We decided that we're better off to keep that pass-through as tall as possible. And from the beginning, we set back the building more than we had to. I introduced a kind of a zigzag to create more space between us and the adjacent building so that we can signal that there's a breathing space in here so people become even more aware that it is a welcoming space. It will get some sun. It is a direct south orientation. It will get southwest, some southeast sun. So we're going to provide a seating area, and let's see how that develops. Otherwise, we have planting area, and our intention, hopefully we achieved it, is to make this pass through present and very pleasant to walk through. It's going to be lit up during the day and in the evening. Again, we're setting the building back to sort of signal the pedestrian that there's something they need to be looking at as they come up from either the right or the left side. Next one, please. So here is the street. As I mentioned, you can see the bioretention planters on the right. Obviously, it has a limited planting material. We've looked at a number of them. We're going to try our best to plant things closer to shrubs, and some maybe taller grasses, etc. But it's divided in a rhythmic way that works with the rhythm of the building. Where you see the smaller tree, that's not a planter, that's real dirt. And it just continues. You can see the parking, parallel parking down the street. And the building base of masonry with the bay windows overhanging. Next one, please. I didn't want anything hidden, so we went around the sidewalk because there were questions to provide. It's just another view of the same thing. Next one, please. Looking from the other side, want to make sure we responded to all of the comments and questions. You can see our intended granite base. Because of the slope, there is some stepping down. Same thing with the bioretention planters. We will keep on improving these in terms of detailing it, obviously. Next one, please. Okay, this is an important rendition. It shows the cut through, the pedestrian cut through clearly and how it will operate. The Camille already has built their cut through. So there are photographs we have of that, and you'll see some of that. There is, I'm guessing, about 10-foot differential between Strathmore Street on the left and Wisconsin Avenue. And they have staircase, but they also provided a 1-story elevator accessible from an alcove or directly from the upper level. So to address the disabled, and we don't have that issue. Our surface is reasonably level. all the way past the alley. So we're trying to stay in unison and in conformity with the treatment. Ours is also like 20 feet high, not as tall as that, but I think it's plenty. And we have some columns. We presented a similar, but still a different treatment in terms of the wall as you're passing through. In contrast to Camille's, on our right side, we're open to planting area and we're open to sky, health and health. Next one, please. So I'm going to start top left. This is a photograph combined with our background. That's the Camille. And the next one is, as you're advancing, you can see the crossing to our pass-through. And on the left is the existing 3-story building. We have some space in between. We've introduced more space by making a fairly wide pass-through in that instance. And then as you go to the right, this is part of our pass-through as you're coming from Strathmore. On the left, another view of the Camille's pass-through. At the center, if you were to be looking from the current apartment building, it's our area towards our pass-through, some landscaping, and we have a seating area. That's also where our transformer is. We intend to cover the transformers with solid panels with access and some planters. But we also have continuous in-ground planting that's parallel to the transformer. Next one, please.
If I can ask just a clarifying question. Can you talk a little bit about the column grid spacing for the passage?
We can go to a plan, perhaps you can see it. I think I'm almost done. This might have been the last,
that's
so
fine.
you're good timing.
That was the last.
Yeah, so can you project that, please? But it's not on the month. Oh. You forgot to click something. Excuse us for a second. There. Okay. I apologize. It's a little dark and I'm going to stand up and point out so you can see it. As I mentioned, in order to be more inviting and assuming that at some point this building will probably keep this building line, thinking long term. Okay? As you're walking along here, my intention was to carve the building in so that you become aware through light, the step, daylight, etc., that there's something of interest here. Obviously, over time, if you keep using this pass-through, you will know. But nevertheless, there will be some seating area provided here. We have in-ground planters, and I don't know if you can see it, because the building is staggered. We have a column here, column here, column here, column here, column here, column here, column here. My only hesitation is whether I will keep that column in the middle. We went back and forth, okay? And I didn't want to create any kind of a conflict. So this is the main pass through, but obviously this is all part of it. This, we were asked to align as much as possible. This portion aligns with Camille's pass. So it is a considered design. Obviously, there are a set of compromises to achieve some kind of an optimization. Really, the last slide we looked at was the end of my presentation, so I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Go back.
When you said this part aligns, it wasn't obvious to me what you were pointing to. Is it the 8 feet to the left, or is it what part aligns? Or is it that whole expanse?
If you look at, we can go look at the renderings again.
Okay,
It's, that's,
that part. Okay,
That part.
that's what I was trying to, okay,
Right.
that's helpful. Thanks.
Camille also had some challenges in providing this. I mean, I don't want to get into it. That's a building that's there, but immediately next to that pedestrian access, there is a service access to the Parisian building. Okay, so they have to really walk a tight line and we aligned with their pedestrian.
Some questions. So structure, based on the sections that were shown, it looks to me like the floor plate is thick, so that tells me it's stick built. It's probably stick built over a concrete.
Can you take us back to the section,
it's
the
A7.
cut through section, and I will point out it's pretty commonplace. I don't know why we're having a glitch. It's showing here, but it's not communicating with that. But long story short, everything that's,
Yeah.
okay, everything that's buried is concrete. The first 2 stories are all concrete. Above that, right now, it's stick frame. But there are some, yes, podium, but there are some challenges. We added a swimming pool. So
That's where I'm going.
we're gonna work on this. You know, I can combine it with steel.
Yeah. that's-
It's going to get complicated. I didn't break the news yet, but we might have to go to a concrete building, but these things are really, I mean, it's an ownership evaluation at some point. This is our intention, but I know there's that challenge.
And it will change the building. Floor slab, right? It looks like you increased the percentage of fenestration. They're larger. I'm wondering how are they larger when they're more thicker, right? I mean, you've got,
It's 9 feet. Our floor clearance is 9 feet.
okay. The mechanical system. We go into the.
The mechanical system currently is going to be a VRF.
So it's a big build, right? And you have to exhaust, this is primarily residential, multifamily, you have to exhaust every single unit. Typically, in my experience, this is through facade.
We're gonna, the dryer and bathroom will be vented through the facades.
Then it brings up the question, your facade is all white. All white.
Wait,
It looks
sure,
beautiful
sure,
until you
Sure,
exhaust that.
what we've done this a number of times. What happened is that the windows are broken into pieces. Part of it, we incorporate a matching vent. And I can't say an architect may not see that, but it really blends in with the building. And I'm sure you've done and seen a number
Yeah.
of that.
It's just- So that's acceptable, and I'm glad that you are incorporated that. Then, but again, it's not quite white. Those vents get dirty, right? So over time, they're in that, right? Those vents are gonna pop out. The lint.
We've done different ones. And I mean, this is a challenge as an architect. You know, but we've had this challenge, I've had this challenge for more than 30 years now. So different architects may be using different techniques, but we have blender boxes and I have done many different ones. We create a space between the blender box and the vent. Depending on the percentage of the opening of the vent that is needed, we have decorative screens, or depending on how utilitarian the building is, it may be louvered screens, but there are a variety. We've done a variety of them. In prominent facades, we've used the, yes, I'm
And
sorry.
then you mentioned synthetic panels. If you, let's say BE, you're gonna get to BE or something's gonna be expensive, whatever tariffs, synthetic panels, right? Can you give me some examples of manufacturers you're thinking? Prespa,
Possibly,
Yeah.
possibly.
Something like
It's not going to be a hardy panel, I can tell you that. I
Yes,
mean,
that's
that's
the
not my intent. There are so many wonderful panels out there right now, and they are becoming inexpensive. So it's combined with that decision, we're going to study the exterior insulation, rain screen business, and what we can get out of that panel, and I have to have a balancing act in terms of the cost of that. But I assure you, I don't intend to make a white building that is not going to have straight lines. So, it's decent joints. Please.
It's a challenge for the building. You have a very, could you go to one of the renderings? I appreciate the comments because I look at it and I imagine it, all the fastenings, all the joints haven't been done with the system. Silicone, it almost leads you to a different design solution. Pulling that off on this will be.
I've done
Yeah.
very similar
With
applications.
with this much articulation.
More. Well, you're talking about the horizontal lines, etc.
All of the elements that provide articulation, it's the bay window, it's the balcony, it's the plane expression.
I've done similar ones.
Yeah.
I'd be happy
I mean, I
to,
think it's ambitious.
I'd be happy to show them to you. These are based on our experience.
Yeah.
But my experience is also incorporates metal panels for where the panels are. So that's my first choice. Okay? Going to a rain screen, I've done it both ways, with rain screen or without rain screen metal panels. They all have their different challenges. So, but look, those are valid points.
Same,
Yeah, those are valid. Yeah, those are valid
Cost
points.
construction.
And, we've asked for wider mullions so that they may appear as part of the horizontal element. We resolved the slab edge cover and that kind of a detail pretty successful. Wasn't so successful.
It's hard.
But look, I share your concerns, but
Yeah.
hopefully we're going to have time to work on this. So we spent our money on what you see here. The rest of the building is,
No, it, renderings look gorgeous.
well, that's,
Beautiful
thank
white
you,
building.
thank you.
It's a challenge.
We're going to do our best to get this.
I think this rendering also shows the different top that you have. It's more of a trellis.
Yes.
I think that's also an improvement and it's just nice detail. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
What is our parking ratio on this building?
0.8.
0.8. I know that's going to be expensive.
Yeah,
It'll
we
be
need
expensive.
a little more.
Project.
It's all expensive.
Yeah, it's all, this
Just
is,
what are you underwriting?
you might guess, I mean, currently the pricing,
80,000 for low ground. Yeah.
well, you can get those numbers, but look,
On a snow.
construction industry has a problem right now. Everybody's looking for work. So
Yes.
I don't know what the concrete pricing is going to be.
I
mean,
wouldn't be upset if you had one less floor on your
Well,
parking.
Parking.
Because I think in Bethesda, you're allowed to have
Well,
some leeway there. So anyway,
that's
that's a
something,
different.
that's something we need to
It's
evaluate.
not condo. It's not condo.
No, it's not condo. I mean, look, you're asking very fundamental and essential questions, and I appreciate every one of them. This is the 180 unit with big challenges building, okay? So, but hopefully I've been doing this long enough that I can pull it off.
The other question I had was, one comment actually.
Sure.
The other question was you're pushing your building back on the alley 4 feet. If the other side of the alley pushes their building back 4 feet, what's the width of the alley now?
The alley property line is 20 feet, property line to property line.
So it'd be
With
an
ours,
additional
it's
8 feet.
24 feet. If they push 4 feet.
And is
the
that
staff
a
might-
DOT request or?
They're not going to be dedicating any additional space. It's just pushing the building back from the property line, but it is for sight distance essentially. So the alley will still remain 20 feet.
My favorite topic, sight distance. Yeah, anyway, okay. So just,
It's really maneuvering space.
yeah, the one comment I had was, because I've just seen too many bad
Hopefully we're not,
examples of it. You said you're going to be putting a little bit of a fence on top of your stormwater facilities along
It's a,
the street.
sure, it's a pretty typical,
Yeah, most of the ones I've seen lately look like they're trying to protect everybody and their mother from going in there and drowning. I mean, it's like a safety thing rather than an element of the landscape. And I really,
I agree with
along
you.
this streetscape, I hope, and the renderings look better than I was imagining. But hopefully we can have
we've
something
had
that's
this
very much like the landscape of a front yard rather than, protecting
I
people.
agree with you, frankly, I would not want to see any fence.
So we redistributed the bios to go with the rhythm of the building in the columns. Bios will end at columns and not very deliberate in where we place those. And also then began to set up a streetscape rhythm. And then we looked at, well, what height do we want the bios? We wanted the height of the bios to be intentional, right here to be intentional. We could lower those to, the height of the sidewalk.
You mean the
Just
cap?
the cap or just the bio itself. We have the ability to raise it and lower it. The idea was for it to raise it. We will need some type of pedestrian. We don't want a 42-inch fence. We want an 18-inch fence just so people don't kind of wobble and fall into it, right?
It's a
And it creates that
symbol more than
streetscape.
anything else to say.
Well, it's
we're not-
required.
yeah,
It's
we're not
required
going
because
over.
the depth, the height of the soil media in the bios is 18 inches below that cap. So that's a pretty far drop off along a street.
What's the requirement? It's not a fall. It's just a
It's
visual.
it's visual. And so it's low, it's intentional, it's decorative. The plants will grow up probably 18 inches above the top of that bio, right?
In winter time, still.
And still you still then have the fence that's decorative. So the idea was to create a good rhythm, create a sense of space along there. And then the rhythm with the trees and the planting beds to break it up.
It was just out of curiosity, was the driver for the stormwater management decision took away the ability to do the Jane Jacobs walk up into the units at street level?
No, not really. Because of the slope, some of the patios end up being raised from the sidewalk.
Sure,
And then you end up with a protective wall or whatever. So we felt at the end of the day, it was better for the sidewalk and the building.
You're saying to put the bio retention against the building versus in the street zone?
Previously,
No.
there were walkouts that came.
Oh,
to the
walk
side.
in between the-
It's just
but-
a little imposing with the space.
I really am.
And by the time the bio planters showed up.
Yeah.
There was no reason to.
In this modern architecture building, that would have been actually, I think, a pretty marketable. You'd have two front doors, but it can be done. And in
I agree.
Bethesda, it can absolutely be done. And I think it'd help you guys on a marketing perspective versus maybe the functional nature of the stormwater management. But it's like you do it the way.
We have, I believe, we have 4 planters and 3, what is it? Five planters and 4 openings in between.
You could have put them out on a. Still had
Well,
that
Rob,
walk.
We didn't want to put it in the right of way. It needed to be on property. We had to balance the green roof.
Montgomery County, they don't work with it.
We had to balance the size of the green roof to the stormwater. So there's a balance between what we have up on the roof and then down on the ground plane.
They're
Right.
building almost to the property. Probably meet and lead, what
Is the building on the property line?
silver.
It's a couple feet off of it.
No, it's
Or,
8 feet, 7 feet off.
yeah, off the property.
I mean, that is a little bit uncomfortable having the building not beat the grade.
Yeah, right. So you've got the separation of the bio and this planting along streetscape.
Yeah.
And then the building.
I
I
think,
think it gives a nice,
I think it's
nice.
So I was gonna give a quick addition to John's point on wondering if there's a way to incorporate activities or elements like that along the road. Definitely there are a lot of that. And that might be a compromise to have that inside-outside relationship. Because right now it doesn't look like it. Towards or out.
No, this is a nice finish, but it's cold, if you will. I mean, I think there's a way to humanize that first 15 feet, 20 feet. But you had it, but then you took it away, so I don't think we're reading.
What I'm saying that's getting lost here is that as the street is dropping, the building floor becomes higher and higher. So if you provide a patio, it ends up sitting pretty tall next
I
to
have
the
no
side.
problem with that.
But, you know, I mean, you're
And the
just,
tools point, though,
Yeah.
even if you don't do the step up with the patios, if you had a way to make it look more open, if you will, right, with a patio that's just accessible from the inside only, that may also address the quality of the human experience.
So I think that they actually, those fire retention planters to meet the requirements of stormwater management and whatever gold or silver that you're trying to meet. And two, remember that materials at the base are granite, brick, stone, a little bit of cast stone. So it looks cold because we are not seeing the details of the, finer joints of brick and the joints between the granite. So that will bring up the warmth, I think. So, and then the details around the fence around fire retention planter and the syncopated rhythm of the base on that Strathmore side actually warms things up along with all the landscaping. So I don't have an issue with not having terraces at the ground level.
So the previous design, we did show those walkouts, right? But then it consolidated and we had one really long bio.
Are
That
you
it looked,
maximizing the depth and everything?
yeah. And it just, we decided to go away from that and just create the street.
it's a challenging
with them,
thing. I mean, the
right?
building interior is not necessarily going to cooperate with the bioretention set. Anyway, I don't think it's a major issue. I mean,
I know you want to do a little architecture, but I have like
Why
to.
don't you go first?
I'm gonna go because I'm gonna come from the investor side.
We'll
and
work our way up.
that's my role there is on the development investor side. Can you, Chancho, go to the perspective of the corner, primary corner on Strathmore and Woodmont? Give you a thought. One, I think it's a nice designed building. And it's a unique opportunity with the land. Yeah, okay. And I, just as I'm gonna kind of spitball a couple things here. What and I don't think we're taking full advantage of this amazing sight line you speak to in your narrative, right? So coming up Woodmont, I have that nice purple wall. Coming up Wisconsin, I don't have that same similar. So I don't know if there's a way, if you looked at it, you may have, I call it silo architecture for a second. Just make that whole bull nose round. And if you look at it in plan view, what's that? If you look at it in plan view, your plan view, the roof line is like really, really sexy, right? And then you can somehow carry that down because I think the way you get a premium in your rents as an investor is the quality of what's happening at the street level. That's my first comment about the walkouts. I would get a premium of rent in those units that I can work with stormwater management in some capacity, be worth arguing, making an argument design wise and financial. And then on top of that, I think the gesture of that, the crescent canopy that's first floor is below 5 feet below the first grade. I just think the whole thing becomes a weak street level presentation. So I can't remedy that because of the grade separation, other than raising the building up 5 feet, which I would have proposed.
I didn't understand that comment, John.
Raise the building up 5 feet is one option because right now
To address what? I mean,
the corner, the presence of the corner. I think there's a blemish on the corner at street level because the first level inside is 5 feet below the street sidewalk. So I would raise it up if I could. I seek 5 feet of relief at the height of the building, which I don't think would be an issue.
Can't get it.
What's that?
We can't get additional.
Okay, so you can't. So you can't get that.
You're measuring from the high point. Yeah.
Right. So then what happens is, and I'll go back to the silo for a second. The idea of a round structure, I think, from a marketing standpoint, rent premium standpoint, would be achievable. You may lose a few rentable square feet, but I don't think you lose a lot. And I think it would have a really unique presence in downtown Bethesda with that round silo, if you will, and then a cap that actually leverages the silo with the uses you have upstairs, with the party room, the exercise room, and then the view from Wisconsin Avenue. If you, Chancho, if you go to that one for a second, I think that view's handsome, the curved part. I think the left side going up Woodmont towards Wisconsin becomes perfunctory. And then when you're looking back from Wisconsin, and if you look to Shiloh round, south of it, if you made it round, I think you would really make yourself that corner right there is been there, done that anywhere in the world. It's nothing unique in terms of the quality of architecture that you couldn't leverage what you've done on the other side and complete that radius all the way around. That would be, and I think as the owner investor, I think I could get a premium on those units without a doubt, and they can be really cool balconies. And I think it just really would set that building off the way you want to, because you're claiming that that's your calling card. And I agree, it is your calling card. So that would be one idea in terms of, on the investment side, maybe look at the architecture if you haven't already in terms of quality of that. And I know round is not square, so it's not, it's a little bit harder, but it certainly is achievable.
Ownership. It's enough.
It's not significant. though.
John, I don't want to disagree with you. I'm not
Well, you
sure
can,
if
like
I
you
need
said.
to answer or not, because I'm not sure if there's a question. I don't agree with your philosophy. My design philosophy is, in this instance, completely different. Shapes function in combination with each other. It's thesis, antithesis. It's a dialogue. The rectangle is interacting with the silo, and it's building a mystery to the building. If you're coming from Wisconsin Avenue, yes, you think that is a been there, done that building. But the building says that that is not the case. Okay? As you round up the corner, then you have a discovery. I mean, to me, that's what a building is. It's, at the end of the day, the massing is when we're looking at it from a bird's eye view, sculpting. And this is a very small site. And the building cannot be everything to everybody. It can have one boss, and that's that corner piece visible from Woodmont. The rest of it is a complement. And if you look at it closely, as we get to the cycle, the building becomes more penetrable by introducing balconies.
So if I can
So,
appreciate what you're saying, but I think
that's my thought.
the compromise, the principles are compromised, I think, because of the low grade first floor. I think that rendering does it injustice with the flowering cherry trees or dogwoods at the street level. I just think that there's a way to really accentuate and accelerate the quality of the visual experience, not to mention the physical experience, by looking at that front of the building differently. Don't respond. I want to give Robert a comment.
So I always, this is the project that's already been through sketch plan. So I always feel that massing comments, time has passed for that for the most part because it was done last year. I do think that the corner is, your approach is to nest the volume into the corner, but I do think it could have been done differently. It could have been done strong fashion, a little cleaner. My bigger concern is just all the detailing that's going to happen as you build the building, the economy of construction. So I'm wondering if can we get a sense of what the material will be as part of this review, Grace? Can we ask for a commitment to the material and understand the material? In my experience in architecture is, you'll design the building differently if you know what the material is going to be. The buildings have their own logic and their own strength. And so knowing, and you know what I'm talking about. We all go through value engineering.
I appreciate
the economics of design, but acknowledging the material and then designing to the strengths of that material is important in architecture because you'll get a better result that way. So I'm a little worried to see it translating to the polymer panel that it's going to be. I really appreciate your comments about the fence and the thickness of the floor size, because I don't think, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure that all the heights are right in the plenums that are expressed in the facade, and the fact that you'll have interior bulkheads below the windows that'll squeeze it even further. All that is coming, I think, next round of development, and it's going to have an impact on the visual. But I think, as you acknowledged, detailing a resin panel versus a metal fencer. And every time you make an attachment joint, it's going to get messier. And so it's almost that you want to revisit that whole material choice. It's your choice as an architect. I
Well,
think you can resolve it.
I hear
just
you.
think do we have a role to say, what is it? What is the material going to be?
I think, in my view.
Yeah.
I think that is something that I need to discuss with my client and manage. I think it would be unfair
Of
to
course, yeah.
lock them into something. It will probably make the building, at some point, I don't know what's ahead of us.
The
I
one thing
want to build the building.
it's like, if I can,
Look at this. I'm just telling you.
yeah, the one thing I want
That's
to
a
add,
lot of pieces of synthetic to put together.
just one thing to keep in mind is that there are public benefits points that are proposed here for architectural elevations. So
Yeah.
there is an opportunity to do some of this.
Oh.
How far that goes in terms of the commitment to stuff, we'd have to evaluate it.
Yeah.
But that is part of what would happen, as this evolves. So
I think it's interesting because this, I think, is the first project that I've seen that does the DAP that is a highly articulated presentation
Very ambitious.
of elevations.
Yeah.
I mean, internally, we were questioning the same thing. I mean, what is the material? Because there's so much articulation on it. It's very hard to see it come all the way to fruition. And so how do you evaluate that? I mean, I think the massing, I think the passage through, I think the street, how you deal with the street are all things that we've sort of addressed, and I think they're coming along very, very well. But, if we're grading it on the articulation, how much, what happens if they come back and in value engineering, these elevations change significantly? Then how do you evaluate it, right? That's the question, I think.
Well, so typically, like in terms of process at site plan, we do have examples of materials that might be that one material isn't pinned down, but you can at least look at option 1 and option 2. And we can even move through our process with 2 different materials on the elevations, and it can be determined at certified. But I don't think that we have that level of information, and it's up to the panel whether you have that level of information to feel comfortable making determination of points.
So- Materials out.
Yeah.
You just hold into those materials, so I do think it's not reasonable to ask for things like a wall section, the material call outs, bring samples to that use regularly in different site plan. Understand that that's a decision you have to make, but I think that's well within the depths.
So we're becoming victim of our own detailing. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Actually.
Okay, on one
In a
hand,
way.
we're being asked to provide information, and as we provide, next, I would like to show up with my construction documents. I mean, please,
This is a standard request, though. This isn't something.
I hear you. I don't have any issue providing a range of materials. But I cannot put our decisions at this point. And as you have to have some faith in the architects.
May I ask another
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
question? Sorry, I don't want to get us sidetracked on it. So, can we go to the north, west corner?
Off of Woodmont.
Yeah. Well, off Woodmont, sort of down from Wisconsin, so there's that little protrusion of sort of what looks like wood grain. I think you said it was going to be some sort of a polymer panel. That one really surprised me. One of the things I really liked in seeing this building was that it was like, oh, it's a white building. And one of the things I'm struggling with a lot of things that are coming out in Bethesda is there are like loads of material changes in a way that lead to these very jumbled looking buildings. It's clear, I know it's a way to try to break down the mass, but I think I'm not an architect. I'll have to say that a million times here, but it seems to me that it makes the buildings very hard to relate to surrounding it. And so I like seeing, this is a white building, you're kind of owning it. This very sort of minor little bit of wood looks kind of like an afterthought, and I also don't understand the move around the other side and why it isn't white.
Just to
More-
clarify,
more
it's really a
interesting.
light gray. I don't want to, it's not a Richard Meyer white building. maybe the.
Fair enough.
renderings are a little-
I had
just-
thought it
just
looked
to
a bit
keep-
like a
yeah.
Richard Meyer building.
Yeah.
A little-
I
a
do
little
understand.
more like
Yeah.
articulated,
Just to
but I'm with you, but at the
clarify.
same time, it's weird. This is like this little eruption in otherwise what is a very sort of single colored
I
expanse.
hear you. That
Um,
is something that we will consider.
Okay,
But in fairness to this design, that material is visited elsewhere in the building.
well, that's one of the questions I had is
It's
it
not.
appears that maybe it's around some
It's
of the
wrapping
balconies.
around the back and some of the sides.
Okay,
It's
Yeah.
not just a token sort of.
I think it's
fair.
something we can look at and consider, Pike, right?
Yeah, I'm not, that's not something I need to decide on right now.
Okay, well, again, it was a little unclear to me from looking at it, particularly sort of inside the balconies. And it, again, to me, it took away from what I thought was so nice about the building, which was actually
I hear that.
kind of had a unity.
Yeah, I hear
There's a
that.
whole nother series of things to solve later.
No, I really, I mean, it's fine. I'm not sure if it's taking away or doing anything for the building. So this was one view of it.
And then I also have a question about the round corner. If we can go back to that view, please. So, okay, so on that, I mean, I definitely agree that the sunken nature of that part of the building kind of takes away from an opportunity there. But the thing I was wondering about, and I think maybe I've read something about this in your filing about that planting panel, the fact that that's not sidewalk all the way up to the building there feels very unurban to me. And this is sort of the most prominent corner in an area that I think is supposed to be an urban street. With that planted sort of setback there, it feels very suburban, sort of more office park to me. And I don't know what the minimum sidewalk width there is, but I assume there's no maximum sidewalk width. And it seems to me like it would be far preferable. I don't know what designers here think about it, but it would be far preferable to have the sidewalk go all the way back to the building.
I'm not opposed to that, but we're working with tree canopy considerations.
Okay.
And that can be,
But the trees you're showing aren't canopy trees, they're ornamentals. So I think on the corner you'd be okay.
okay, but, you know, so we were asked to add those trees, so we did.
The tree canopies
We
associated.
prefer to have it more visible in the corner if possible.
Yeah.
I prefer to see the trees planted further out if it were possible. I don't know. For me, it's the location of the sidewalk. And that planting area just really is going to deaden that corner in my experience. I can't think of another prominent building corner.
No, I
that's
think
lined with
that's
landscape.
also a very valid comment.
Correct me if I'm wrong, DOT not gonna let you plant those.
We're close to
Corner. So here with all these trees, I think they're illustrated right now when they get to site plan, all these trees in the corner, they're coming out, but they're within the site distance and you can plant more of them.
We've checked the site distances and don't. But see as we go through the process.
Is there a plan that shows the plantings clearly?
First floor.
Does the lobby go up inside to
Yeah, it's
above that little canopy? Okay.
Yes, it's a two-story space and,
Because it seems like you might express that better by having that canopy above those two windows rather than
we're gonna
cutting
try
through
that.
it.
We didn't have the chance, okay? I need to study that. We need to align mullion lines, so there's some issue. And we're aware that it's getting a little close as the slope is getting up. But one thing I will consider is that as the building is sinking towards the alley corner, given enough time for us to study, I may be able to raise the platform, the lobby at that point, so I can establish a better relationship with the outside. But when we have planting, it really wasn't worth going through too much trouble because you're not going to be connected. But if the sidewalk is going to increase all the way to the edge of the building, then I would like to reconsider what we do in the lobby.
So to address the site distance, since this is a right out only, the site distance is from the left, not from the right or across the street on Woodmont, right? So we also then also are following the Bethesda streetscape guidelines as far as the rhythm of the trees and setting up the streetscape. So there is no site distance conflict at the lobby area because of just a right turn only. If it was an intersection, obviously it would, but.
But I don't think the comment was about the street trees. It was about the plantings between the sidewalk and the building space.
Well, there was a site distance question, which I addressed, but then there's also whether we do those in a columnar variety, we can identify and modify the species to match the need of the plant material.
Yeah, it's, yeah, my issue is not with what kind of trees they were. It's just that I don't think that planting panel should
Right
be there.
here, the sidewalk should come up to the building. I mean, here you have lower yards, but I think it's about this piece,
Right
this
there.
area here, which in the renderings had like cherry trees. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my concern. And
I think it's great if you have street trees, but so that's I don't think is the issue.
Right. It's, the building feels like it's disconnected from the.
Yeah.
You know, between the.
I would like to bring the sidewalk all the way to the window line.
I think we can do that. Yeah. I think that's doable.
Then sort of fall there.
No, basically right there where the break is, where the curve is the ground plane, where it breaks along Woodmont, that whole round piece could turn into paving.
So we are 15 minutes over. There's been a lot of comments. The applicants are requesting 20 points for design excellence. It sounds like, based on what we're talking about today, that maybe another round of submission is necessary. But I want to make sure that I'm getting the right comments to the applicant and the applicant's hearing the right things from the panel of what you guys want to see next time around. So updating of the ground floor layout for sure, showing the plantings becoming pedestrian paving material. What else would we like to have?
I think a little bit of exterior information, right? Typical way or piece of how you're doing some of the detailing, which you're going to do anyway, would be helpful for me in knowing what the material choices would be for you.
And it could be like two different materials that they're
that's-
playing around with.
Yeah, the main material.
Main ones.
That's a question about materials. Why the difference in material? Why stone? Why brick? Why synthetic wood? I mean, like, what's the 5 different types of material? What was your logic?
There are only 3 materials.
So it's the metal panel.
White panels, and then we have the brick base, masonry base. Really, the other one, I mean, we can debate whether it's an all-white building. My feeling was that I would like to emphasize the pass-through area a little bit more, so we went to a different material there, and then it just sort of found its way through the alley to the other corner. I mean, it's not a critical thing for this building.
Compliments on the past.
Thank
Very
you.
nice, very well done, and keep the column. My vote is to keep the column. It's more beguiling with the column.
How many public benefit points for beguiling? Is that like 2, 3?
Beguiling is helpful.
Okay, so.
Okay. Is there anything else that the panel would like to see next round?
So this is where my question was coming from earlier.
Mhm.
Because of the amount of detail on this elevation, I'm not sure how we review it again. In other words, I think they've identified materials at this point. I think there's a big question of whether this could actually be achieved or not.
Correct.
So, how do you evaluate it more unless you actually do, unless you actually get the construction documents and budgeting? to determine whether you can actually do it.
That's my point.
That's, it gets really detailed
Have
to
a
see
little
the
faith.
next level, I think.
I mean,
I'm not sure how you get there. I mean,
I know, but it's part of the exercise of, as an architect, and you know, material choices impact buildings.
I understand that, but you know, we've also been through this. Personally, I've been doing this 40-some years, and
If you had known the material choice you might be winding up with, would you have designed it this way, day one? That's the question.
I've been honest. I said, I'm shooting for aluminum panels.
I mean, you know, my point also is, right now, I think we could all vote and say, absolutely, this gets 10 points.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I
think if they actually detail it and then build it the way they're showing it, they should get 30 points.
Yeah.
So that's where the question is. And so if they need 30 points, then yeah, I think they got to come back
No,
again.
we don't. I think you
If
should
they
let us
need,
know.
if they only need 10 points, I
think
think it's
this building
done. I
has
think
been
it's a nice
detailed.
design.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. So if they're asking for 20 points, I'd rather just focus on the 20 points for now. So when they come back with the materials they're proposing, if the DAP feels comfortable with 20 points, then that's that. But if you feel that with the additional information, you don't think that it's going to make the 20 points and you only shoot for 10, then there's that. If they ask for 20 points and we have the certified plans showing the materials, and then it goes through value engineering and it changes, then that's something that staff needs to make sure is still in substantial conformance with the 20 points. If it's not, they would need to revise the points. Does it affect the project's total
And
benefit
again, this
package?
project's unique.
But Greg,
Everything
we need to get the benefit of every other project that
Ambitions.
Bethesda has in CBD, a range of materials. And
May
the
I
range
just make
is,
one comment? I think the comment was just made that, you know, the board, if there's a change in the material, it will have to come back and be approved anyway. So I would think that we should be able to be approved based on what we're showing here, as was pointed out. And then if the material is changed, again, it would have to be approved anyway. So wouldn't that provide the protection that the staff is looking for here, or the board?
So we can do right now, based on saying.
Good points, but also like if we're approving elevations that show the materials, we're happy with providing an option 1 and option 2, but I don't think that can encompass a range of materials. Typically, when we do this in the past, we've allowed 1 or 2 different materials, but it just depends on what exactly it ends up with.
How many points do you need?
Right now, we're at say 113.
So that's with the 20.
With the 20.
So if you only had 10, you'd be at 103.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you want to have as much buffer as possible in case whatever.
Right.
So it sounds like, and what I'm hearing from the panel is that maybe the panel that you're at 10, and to go more than 10.
really,
I struggle, I will say I struggle with 10, just given the sidewalk issue on the corner, because I just think it's such a basic move. That corner to me is just a very anti-urban condition, and I don't understand. So I really struggle with that. I know it's in there, it's one thing, but it's a very important aspect of this building.
I agree with it.
That kind of assumes.
Well, I understand. I'm just asking, I'm just saying that's one where I'm feel rather stuck on it. So I'm not sure what
They fill that in.
Okay, not, yeah.
If the applicant were to come back, when would that calendar affect your timeline in terms of the other submissions that you're mentioning? So
They have not submitted yet, so there is time. If you don't feel comfortable voting today, there is time in the schedule to.
I'm throwing 10 and 30 out as sort of extremes, you know, to make the point, but I just think that there's so much detail on these elevations. I think they're beautiful. If we could get close to that, this would be a potential, you know, design excellence award winner someday.
That's our intent.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to try to do.
So
maybe the
I
typical.
wouldn't want to stop them from doing that. Absolutely. I just think that it's tough to evaluate it with the points in lieu of how they're doing it.
I would also, just to clarify, make sure what the starting point was. We were on track for 10, as you know, with the sketch plan. That's documented in the sketch plan and in the resolution. So I'd be a little surprised if we're slipping back from.
I think the idea is going above 10. I think Robert suggested having like a typical bay, like having a
Couple different
drawing.
material choices, one bay, typical details. You've got a million details to figure out, but a couple of the fundamental ones. You know, there's a lot of hanging pieces and elements that I have no idea how you're gonna do them. So either you simplify the building or you show how you're gonna do it. I think that's, you know that. So,
I don't have any issue with that,
Yeah.
but there's a time.
right.
But I think you understand that, frankly, I mean, to use very crude language, we're trying to avoid a bait and switch. That there's this beautiful building, but then what you build is something that it looks more cheap because of value engineering. And so I think this next step is really just you've talked about having a conversation with your client about materials. And so I think having that conversation and having an A and a B, your preferred metal panel and this other panel, and showing what that would look like, I think, just in 2 drawings side by side of a typical bay, you know, that has the ground floor and maybe 1 or 2 stories above that, just to show how it's going to be detailed in elevation. You know, maybe you have typical details in terms of a wall section, maybe you don't, but I think that just sort of the next level where the elevation details, an elevation focused explores the materiality more is what I'm hearing to get above 10. Is that fair?
And to Dave's point, maybe in the landscape,
Yeah, we're going to see a plan, right?
not asking for a full package, right?
Does that impact their schedule? Is there some way to sort of have a meeting in between if they have a schedule issue to help facilitate the review? Would you be willing to do that? Is that too informal?
I don't think they could not, I mean, we could run this parallel, right? I mean,
Well, and you're early.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
you said you
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
planning.
yeah.
so we're gonna be in intake for a bit. You know, and then once we're in review, we go through DRC and all of that. So there's an opportunity for overlapping this process.
And it could be a month, right?
Yeah.
If it was a month from now, that's a month for you to have the conversations. And then it won't take you a month to get through intake, I'm sure. But I mean, it'll be reasonably in the process by then.
In a way, it's a compliment. It's a compliment because you've.
Robert, I hear you, but I hear you, and I appreciate it. I'm just. So we show up with a couple of details.
Yeah.
We don't agree on the details. Where do I go? What's my next step?
Your next step is to have 10 design excellence points instead of,
I
you
mean,
have 10 now. It's
think
only
that-
if you want more.
I
than
think
10.
the thing is that if it's at 10, we're still above the.
right, so why don't we just say 10 and trust us?
I think we can.
I mean,
You don't need to decide now.
Yeah. Is it impacting our schedule to do this?
Is it?
just money.
Yeah, yeah. it doesn't-
You have to do it anyway. I've been there.
I want to come work with you, Robert.
And we are working to get rid of the user lose cap or the user lose requirements in the overlay zone. So that'll give you even more.
Well, thank you. I will get these notes tidied up.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.